Let me get rid of this piece of video right now because we don't need that now. But I'm just going to quickly double click, and that opens in the source monitor. That's not the program monitor. This is the monitor where we use to view or edit. This is to just preview our footage. And if we play this back, it plays back at real time. Those are pellets going into the pizza oven, ready to fire up. Now, as you can see, that all played in real time, no problem. But let's do something to affect this, because we can slow this down once we start editing, because there's 100 frames per second there. If we're at 25 frames per second in the timeline, you can actually slow that down by 4 times without any loss in quality. You can actually slow it down a little bit further without that much loss in quality, and we will cover that later in this tutorial. But let's just see what we can do with this, because this is a part in Premiere Pro that not many videographers, not many editors use, and I think this saves a lot of work further down the line. Now, that's pretty much everything that we've done so far, so let's stay with that vein. I've got that clicked, I'm holding down Shift and clicking the end, just like if I Control and A and selected everything. And what we're going to do is we're going to right click and we're going to modify this footage. And the way in which we're going to modify is we're going to interpret the footage. Now remember, it's 100 frames a second right here. This gives us the option in the interpret footage panel. We're not touching anything else. We're saying here, use frame rate from file, 100 frames a second. Now that's as default. With anything that you put in, it assumes that you want to use the frame rate that it was recorded at. However, what we're going to do here is we're going to assume this frame rate, and rather than 1, we're just going to type in 25. There's not much times or instances in Premiere Pro where you need to type things in. This is one of those times. So 25 frames per second is selected, and we're going to press OK. And watch here when I press OK. This is now 25 frames per second footage, but nothing's changed. But it really has, because this footage right now, those eagle-eyed among you may see that this little handle went from here all the way to here. That's because we have a lot more footage to play with. Remember how it just played back nice and smooth and, well, real time? If we press the space bar now, again, we have a play button here. I don't really play around with this because there's not really much that you can do in here. But if we press the space bar right now and play back, we're actually playing back now at 1/4 of the speed. And because it was recorded in 100 frames a second and then slowed down, we keep all that information and all that quality. That's why I filmed this at 100 frames per second, because what I wanted to do was to be able to edit the B-roll over my review to have it really nice and cinematic, and it's a really overused term in the industry, but yeah, a nice cinematic, lovely feel. Now, as you can hear, the audio has slowed down too. There's not really anything you can do about that other than maybe unlinking the audio in the edit and speeding it up, but that really wouldn't match up. Most B-roll is used without any audio, and there's music underneath to cover that and to make up the whole design of the video in itself. So that's what we've done here with the frame rates. We have, you could quite have easily had footage in here that was shot at 60 frames a second or 120 frames a second. Now, if this was shot in an NTSC, remember what we were talking about before? If this was shot in an NTSC area, such as the United States of America, Canada, we looked at Burma before, Japan, this possibly would have originally been 120 frames a second, because we would have been shooting at 30 frames standard, or 29.97, 30 drop frame. You remember that? If not, take a little look back to the previous chapter. That was under the section 4.2, Understanding Frame Rates, PAL versus NTSC. So that's your frame rates, and that's how to convert your frame rates into what you want to use. Now, this isn't necessary or totally necessary, because it can always be done in the edit. But I like to start my project in the right frame rate, because when we're going through the source monitor, we can set our in and out points right here to bring in just the footage that we need. But that is getting ahead of ourselves. We're here, we've done everything that we need to do within the program to get ourselves ready to edit. Guess what we're doing next? We're going to create a sequence and start playing with this footage. You've made it, you've done your learning, you've set the foundation. Now it's time to play with the video. Congratulations.